They took away our knobs.
They took our nib.
They took your nib.
And somehow convinced us that it was an upgrade. And this might be the biggest hi-fi propaganda campaign in history. It was elegant, coordinated, and convincing enough that, well, we all thought we were wrong about what good sound actually is. And honestly, this is a masterclass in groupthink and the extinction of common sense.
That's why I developed Common Sense. It's a revolutionary system to help you make smart decisions.
In the 60s, 70s, and 80s, we had control, bass, treble, balance, loudness.
Poof. Gone.
And then poof, gone, eliminated, removed, vilified. So sit down, grab a cup of coffee, and let's talk about the 5 variables that destroy the reason why these features were removed and how we got sold the greatest scam in hi-fi history. Every track in this video was made using Suno. I combined punk and ska, and I wanted the lyrics, I love speakers and amps and turntables. And this is what I got after about 30 seconds.
I love speakers and amps and turntables. I love speakers and amps and turntables.
To make a song, the only thing that you need to do is describe the song. So if you want to combine sitar with down-tuned guitars and a brass section, you certainly can. Not a common combination, but what it created was good. I mean, legitimately good. I use a ton of music in my videos because it sets the mood, it provides a transition, and I have a subscription to a royalty-free music service, but it takes forever to find exactly the right song. With Suno, I just type in what I want, and then I have a track that fits perfectly in my video's theme. And I have all commercial rights to that track. So Suno for me saves me a ton of time and is super fun because now each song in my video is truly unique. I even created a cheap Audio Man anthem song.
This is the cheap audio man's anthem.
I know everybody watching this video loves music, so you need to check out suno.com and have fun. So click on this QR code right here or just go to suno.com and start making music your way today. Ah, the good old days when we had knobs. You know, hi-fi was interactive. We didn't just listen, we controlled how stuff sounded. We had lights, meters, switches, enough to make a pilot nervous. You could tailor the sound to your room, your mood, and the loudness control made things sound good when we were listening quietly. It wasn't cheating, it was physics. And Peter Baxendall, the guy that was basically behind the tone control circuit, believed that music should be adjustable. And it basically was in every amp after the 1950s. His circuit was elegant, simple, and added almost no distortion. Basically, the man invented the first audio cheat code. For decades, adjustable sound wasn't controversial. It was commonplace and common sense. Until one day, it wasn't. Because soon, the same companies that gave us control started telling us that we weren't qualified to use it.
Did you hear the difference?
No.
In the late 1970s, well, that's when this thing went off the rails. Purity was the new religion. An amplifier should be a straight wire with gain. Nothing more, nothing less. The amp should add no color at all to the sound. Tone controls, evil. Balance, gone. Loudness, don't even say loudness. Audiophiles should keep everything flat, and they said it often enough that everyone started to believe it. And by the 80s, companies started joining in. Rotel launched a stripped-down integrated amplifier and bragged about the removal of features. In a 1984 article in Hi-Fi Choice, all tone controls removed. Translation, we took away features, and you're welcome. A year later, another reviewer said, tone controls omitted as well as LED meters and the balance control. It's like bragging that your new car has no steering wheel, but that it handles great.
Wow, there's no steering wheel.
And the scariest thing of all, people bought it. Fewer knobs became a marker of taste and refinement. Maybe in theory, shorter signal path means better sound, but in reality, for most listeners, the differences were microscopic at best, and as you will soon find out, much, much worse in reality.
Now that's a scam.
Once the sonic purity story got out, well, accountants agreed. And when accountants get involved in audio, generally speaking, nothing good happens. Fewer knobs meant fewer parts. Less wiring, fewer warranty claims. Cheaper to build, easier to sell. And just like that, minimalist, uncompromising. And as the artist intended it, became luxury adjectives. They weren't adding value, they were removing it, and then convincing you it was better, and then making you pay more money. And the company started serving up marketing instead of, good sound for the listeners. However, before we talk about the 5 things that blow this whole argument up, let's talk about how other industries have done the same thing.
What's this red blinking light mean?
If you're old like me, you may remember when cars had gauges. Oil, temperature, voltage. You could see a problem coming like an adult. Then somebody said, hey, you know what? Those gauges, they're too complicated and they cost too much. Let's just give them a light. So when it comes on, they can say, something smells like burnt money. And that is kind of what happened in hi-fi. And they called it progress. Remove features and tell people that it's better. Remember when you could put a different battery in your laptop or add random access memory or a new hard drive? Yeah, that's not happening. Now everything's glued shut and next to impossible to repair without a heat gun. And even if you have one of those, well, it's not going to happen. But it's sleeker.
Planned obsolescence, Goggins.
They call it design. I call it planned obsolescence. That mindset, removing capability, removing features, and convincing people that it's refinement, infected everything. Even our homes, which makes it kind of ironic when we get into these 5 different variables, because the first variable is the room. If we think about it, 50s, 60s, 70s, and earlier, rooms were a bunch of rectangles. 4 walls, carpets, curtains, predictable reflections. Both speakers generally had equal boundary reinforcement, stereo symmetry. Now, welcome to the open concept nightmare. One speaker sits next to a corner with a whole bunch of bass boost. The other one fires off into the void next to your kitchen, and there's no bass. And your center image? Well, it drifts 2 or 3 feet to the left. And you know what could fix that? Balance controls. But that thing slowly disappeared because it was evil. Without balance control, the only way you can fix that is if you pull one of the speakers all the way out into the room. And guess what? You still have all that boundary reinforcement bass on the left speaker. Not everyone has a perfectly symmetrical room. That's why it would be nice if we had balance control. What would also be nice is if we had something that maybe compensated for volume.
Physics.
Fletcher and Munson, the peanut butter and chocolate version of audiophile science. The Fletcher-Munson curve proves that we hear differently at different volume levels. As sound gets quieter, bass and treble gets quieter, mid-range gets louder, or at least that's how our brain interprets it. So they created the loudness control. It boosted lows and highs at lower volume. Therefore, it sounded good. And it was a correction for biology. It wasn't a gimmick. But the purity movement killed it in the 1990s. Now, everyone is supposed to listen to their music at a reference level, which is generally about 85 dB.
Nobody tells me what to do.
Even though most people don't listen to things at 85 dB. Without the loudness control, a lot of music sounds thin, especially if you have a child in the next room sleeping. So we lost balance, now we lost biology. Wait till we talk about speakers.
No, that doesn't sound right.
A Klipsch speaker does not sound like an ELAC. An ELAC speaker does not sound like a zoo speaker. And a zoo? Well, they laugh at that flat frequency response that everyone is supposed to adhere to. Different voicings, different crossovers, different personalities. And you can't design one flat amp that sounds the same for all these different speakers and expect it to sound good, because the sound of speakers is all over the map. Some of them are bright enough to perform LASIK eye surgery, and tone controls are the great equalizer between all of these different speakers. Take the tone controls away and pack your bags, because you're going to go on a very long journey of trying to figure out which amp pairs the best with those speakers. Even flat speakers aren't flat when you put them in your room. Without tone controls, you're stuck with what their idea of good sound is, depending upon what speaker you have, what amp you have, and what room you're in. Oh, and the next variable? Well, it's very unique to you.
Here's the outer ear, the middle ear, and the inner ear.
Our hearing. No two ears are alike. And not even my right ear and left ear are alike. Maybe you served on a submarine or grew up on a farm operating heavy machinery as an 8-year-old, and maybe some of that loud industrial noise damaged your hearing. Ever notice how your system might sound a little bit better at night? It might not be the amp, it might be you.
Much smoother.
Amps with no tone control basically assume that everybody's ears are the same. So, because we all have different hearing, different rooms, different speakers, it would be nice to have tone controls or balance or loudness controls, especially when you hear about the final variable. The recording, because every album is different and every different version of the same album is different. Early rock and roll and jazz and early 80s thrash metal was recorded for crappy turntables and small speakers. Engineers boosted mids so that you could hear it properly through a Pop-Tart sized speaker in the middle of your dashboard. Play that on a modern decent system and it sounds like sandpaper in stereo. Remove tone controls and the loudness control and every flaw is now the truth. That's not purity. That's punishment. It's like buying a microscope to admire dust. Tone controls take those old, brittle recordings and make them beautiful or maybe listenable, because pretending that every mix is the same only applies to marketing departments. But before we wrap up, let's talk about something that could fix pretty much everything, and it was eliminated. 10, 20 bands, real-time analyzers, bouncing LEDs. It was wonderful. Oh yeah, tape loops too, because you had to connect it through your tape loop. Realistic techniques, Panasonic, Sansui, Pioneer, they all had wonderful EQs. They looked like the dashboard of a spaceship, but more importantly, they gave us the ultimate control. Even reviewers said that they were useful in reducing room resonances and speaker deficiencies. And it wasn't hype. It was physics and faders. Then, pretty much overnight, gone, evaporated. It was almost like somebody whispered, hey, there's a lot of parts in that thing. What if we eliminated all of them and called it purity and convinced everybody that it sounded better? Meanwhile, car stereos were adding all sorts of control at really low prices. DSP, balance, time delays, multiple EQ presets based upon what type of music you're listening to. Apparently, you could fix reflections off of your windshield, but not in your living room. The car guys were solving physics problems while the hi-fi guys were ignoring it. And that's how we ended up here, in an audiophile world where you can't fix anything and it sounds real good, or at least they tell you that it sounds real good. Let's wrap it up and talk about why none of this was ever true.
Terrible, dirty trick.
If an amp with less control, the shortest signal path, if it was the highest of fidelity, then this had to be true. 1, every room had to be identical. 2, every speaker had to be identical. 3, everyone's hearing had to be identical. 4, everyone had to listen at the same level. And 5, every recording had to be identical. But none of that is true. Marketing turned simplicity into superiority. Accountants figured out that they didn't have to pay for as many parts, and engineers figured out that, well, it's not very complicated if we don't include all these extra circuits. And the worst thing is they dressed it up in philosophy, purity. And it wasn't engineering, it was a lack of engineering, the removal of engineering. It was propaganda.
Like a propaganda machine.
A beautiful example of convincing people that less is more. And a lot of people bought it. Even I kind of bought it. But not everybody drank the Kool-Aid. Yamaha, with their very affordable AS line, includes balance, includes tone, and it includes variable loudness. Emotiva, I don't think, has ever gotten rid of tone controls. And a lot of the streamers coming out today have DSP, including the very affordable Weem Ultra. You have bass, you have tone, you have loudness, you have room correction now, and balance. Crazy, right? It's almost like hi-fi in 2025 is finally catching up with car audio in 2005. What Audiophiles needed isn't fewer options, it's the same beefy, wonderful power supplies, same high-level components, and control. The true irony for me is a lot of these amplifier companies got rid of science with the Fletcher-Munson curve and then said, hey, look at our stuff. It's got super low distortion because we're using science, even though we got rid of science. But good sound is not about purity, it's about possibility. And the moment that we forget that, we forget about our own ears and we start trusting somebody else. So bring back the knobs. Bring back the loudness button. Bring back balance controls. Because real high fidelity isn't about trusting your gear. It's about trusting your ears.
That's why I developed common sense.
They took our nib!
Dig yours.